Hey there, crafties. We have a lot of new subscribers, and I want to thank you so much for your support. Please feel free in all of the videos to join in the conversation in the comments section. Be mindful and be kind to each other. If you're hateful, your comments are going to be deleted. I'm not here to monetize off of covering crime stories. In fact, the crime stories are the ones getting more views than the crafting stories. And if you did your research, my channel is about crafting and crime. It just so happens that more people are taking interest in the crime stories. So be kind to each other in the comments section. I can't monetize yet, but when I do, we are going to raise awareness and we are going to raise funds for various organizations across the country. In fact, yesterday, we donated to the Gabby Petito Foundation. I don't need to prove anything to you. However, someone in our comments section said, it's a shame that you're monetizing off of these tragic stories. Anyway, I'm a former journalist and I'm going to cover them in the best way I can. So let's get to it. Let's be kind to each other in the comments section. Today, we're going to talk about PTSD. And PTSD in relation to the Chris Watts case, which brought a lot of you here because I'm doing a book review. So many of you may know the name Michael Rourke. He's the district attorney out of Colorado in Weld County. He's the one who put Chris Watts behind bars. Recently, he took part in a speech for TED Talk. Now, a part of my channel, I do not use video that I don't own the rights to. I respect copyright laws, but I do want to talk about his speech. To watch the full speech, I will pin it in the comments section, but I want to share some sound bites with you that I thought were really amazing. The district attorney talked about PTSD, not how it relates to a person who just experiences trauma, but something called vicarious trauma. Something I didn't even know about until about 3 weeks ago. Several people on this case had to retire, leave, or find something different to do with their lives because they were so traumatized. I really commend the district attorney for coming forward and saying, hey, this affected me. So let's have a listen at some of that speech.
We are taught to confidently stride into that courtroom with that tough, hardened exterior, because that's what our community expects. I had heard that term before, vicarious trauma, in relation to our military and our first responders, law enforcement, fire, emergency medical professionals. Yet still I had no recognition that vicarious trauma could impact me too. It was just part of the job, right?
So here's a little background about Michael. He has been serving his community since 1997, and he usually takes on the high-profile cases, which you'll hear a little bit about that shortly coming up. He has a wife named Kimberly. He actually met Kimberly while working on her case, and she talks about her situation on her podcast. Here is a look at the channel. You should subscribe and listen to it.
18. Frederick, Colorado. A man whose name will not come out of my mouth stood before the television cameras, feigned concern, and lied to the public, claiming he needed the information about the whereabouts of his missing wife and 2 young daughters. But something was off. And within just a matter of a couple of days, we learned that this was a calculated charade by a monster who had annihilated his family.
In the speech, Michael goes on to talk about details of the case, and I'm encouraging you to go watch the video yourself because I don't own the copyright to it. I'm just sharing a couple of sound bites. Now, most importantly, he begins to share his experience on how it made him feel. So let's listen.
My partners and I readied ourselves to enter into that courtroom to be the voice for the innocent, to be the voice for that young pregnant mother and her 2 daughters. We were going to get justice for her killer. At the time, as the district attorney, I had a team of lawyers and investigators working for me, and I let them take the lead early in this investigation, and for my own mental health, I refused to look at the crime scene evidence. But at the time, Colorado still had the death penalty. And I knew that if we were going to consider seeking the ultimate punishment, I had to see for myself what he had done.
Now I know you may be thinking, but Chris Watts didn't get the death penalty. I'll tell you why. Sandy Rusick, Shanann's mom, said, "I don't think it's fair for us to take Chris's life." She later changed her mind when she was on Dr. Phil and found out further details after investigators went to Wisconsin and did an interview with Chris and got more details about this horrific crime. We can't go back in time. I've reached out to the DA to see if he would be willing to do an interview, and he declined, which I understand. He is so sick of talking about this case.
I opened my laptop to look at the photos which documented the recovery of those little girls' bodies from those oil tanks by hazardous materials crews. What I saw were two little blonde girls' lifeless bodies covered in oil. I mentioned their hair color for this simple reason. I too had a 3.5-year-old daughter with long blonde hair. And as I looked at those photos, I looked up at my daughter singing and dancing in my living room, and something happened. I was lightheaded. I got tunnel vision. I felt like I was going to faint, and I felt like I was going to throw up. My wife watched as a very dark shadow cast over my face, and it had finally happened. All of the evil, all of the pain, all of the trauma that I had seen finally spilled over. That was the moment I realized this job had changed me forever. And to this day, every time I drive by one of those tanks, I see those little girls and I see my daughter. My mind goes back to that very dark place that I found myself in the fall of 2018, and I am filled with rage.
That part of the speech really stood out to me. Like many of you, I landed on Watts Island here and there since 2018 and wondered, did someone else take part in this tragedy? And I have to think, after hearing the DA speak the way he did, and how angry it made him and other employees in Weld County, would they let someone else get away if they had something to do with it? And I would like to think no. But I know there's many people out there on Reddit who have their conspiracy theories.
Vicarious trauma is real, not just for prosecutors. It is a daily reality for legal secretaries, victim advocates, investigators, attorneys, and supervisors.
Michael then goes on to talk about a group they created to help each other in the workplace if they're having a hard time with a case that they're handling.
That old narrative of the tough, aggressive prosecutor who ignores his or her own mental health for the sake of the job is being crumpled up and thrown away like the trash that it is. So we decided to do just that. Create a peer support system in our office for our deputy district attorneys, our investigators, our victim advocates, our administrative professionals. Under the guidance of a former law enforcement officer and trained counselor, we recruited volunteers for a rigorous training program to become a member of this peer support team. This team, including employees from my own office, are not trained to provide professional mental health counseling, but instead to be that immediate resource.
So it's amazing to see that there has been some change made, at least in Weld County, Colorado, but it should be all across the country, and it sounds like that's what Michael is trying to help do. Let me know in the comments section if you have ever suffered from PTSD, from trauma, being in the military, or simply covering a case, reading about a case. Share your thoughts, and we'll see you next time. Again, in the comment section is a link to the full video of the TED Talk.